180 SpaceX Falcon launches in 2025. Is that realistic? That's what Gwynne Shotwell says. That's what Elon Musk says. He says more than. Is it realistic? I'm going to break it down for you because I think it might be realistic. It's an upper limit at least. So when I did my 2025 space predictions video, which I will link above, I got the most pushback about this topic. I think everyone pretty much agrees that SpaceX is the workhorse of the entire world when it comes to launch. There has been such a significant increase in launch capability because of SpaceX. I'm the executive director of space consulting firm Astrolytical, where we track this stuff. We actually look at the data. And so when I went to collect the data, I was surprised that it had already been done for me. Thank you, Wikipedia editors, because I am going to show you some really great graphs that they put together. This first one is the number of launches over time, number of launches at specific spaceports. But for the moment, I'm going to talk about spaceports later, but for the moment, I just want to know the total number of launches per year for SpaceX. You can see it's quite a ramp up. Basically, I want you to look at the number of launches in 2023 compared to the number of launches in 2024. 2023 had 96 successful launches, and then there was an increase to 134 in 2024. That is a 40% increase roughly. So if you take that 134 launches that SpaceX did last year and you increase that by 40%, I have to step back and say that past performance is not an indicator of future performance, but we can sort of extrapolate. We can make some guesses and projections based on past performance. So if you were to take that 40% increase that SpaceX had from 2023 to 2024 and apply it 2024 to 2025, we get 190 launches. And that's way beyond what I think that they're actually going to do, by the way. But let's take a look at previous years. Let's not just look at 23 to 24. Let's look at 2022 to 2023. 2022 had 61 launches and then went up to 96 in 2023. That is a 57% increase. 2021 had 31 launches, which went up to 61 in 2022. That is an 87% increase. So suddenly 40% increase isn't looking so bad as an estimate for 2024 to 2025 now, is it? I'm going to break this down even further. Let's look at quarters. Q1 of 2024, the first 3 months, that's January, February, March, they had 31 launches. In Q2, they had 36 launches. In Q3, they had a minor incident, actually 2 minor incidents into Q3. I think it was all in Q3. So that brought them down to 27 launches. They had to wait for their investigation to conclude. They had to wait for FAA to give them a launch license. That delayed them only a very short time. I have a video about that as well. And so that really brought them down a little bit. Again, 27 launches in Q3. Q4, all the way up to 40 launches. So if we were to take that recovery period, that Q4, that October, November, December that they just had, and project that out, 4 quarters with 40 launches, let's not even say that they increased it anymore, but the 40 launches per quarter, that is 160 launches. So that's within that range of 150, 180. That actually sounds pretty reasonable to me. SpaceX does have its problems from time to time. It's fairly rare, but as we saw last year, they do occasionally have setbacks, that they will continue to have them, and they will continue to learn from them and iterate, and they will be slightly slowed down by each of these incidents. Now, the caveat there is that all of those incidents, those 2 from last year, they were uncrewed launches. And if you were to look at, future crewed launches, there's a few that are on the docket for 2025, some NASA ones, there's FRAM-2, which is a private mission, there's Axiom-4, and anytime human spaceflight is involved, if there's an incident, there's probably a casualty, and there's a long, lengthy investigation. So that would slow them significantly. So the caveat here is that 150 to 180 launches, I'm just assuming that there are no astronaut deaths. But let's continue to talk about payloads, right? It's not just launches. That launch vehicle is just a means of transportation. What are they launching? They are majority launching their own satellites, which allows them to launch so many times each year. It's allowed them to ramp up that launch cadence, but they don't solely launch Starlink launches. They have a mix of commercial and government as well. And if you look at this graph, again, by the Wikipedia editors, thank you for this. I don't want you to look so much at the success and failure rates. I want you to look at that bottom part of each bar graph where you can see that bottom part is how many commercial and government launches they've had. The top part is how many Starlink launches they've had. And so the 2025 number obviously is just not filled out yet because there's going to be more than 3 Starlink launches in 2025. I want you to look at that bottom part. The commercial and government planned launches already planned for 2025, not counting any additional contracts that they sign to launch that same year, 2025. And what you see here is an increase from 45 in 2024 launched, that's 45 commercial and government successful launches in 2024, compared to 50 planned commercial and government launches in 2025. So you're seeing an increase. It's not a large increase, it's just 5 at this point, but it's still an increase. And so given that Starlink is not slowing down anytime soon, they have the different variations, they're going to need higher launch numbers to get those larger Starlink variations launched. They are planning eventually to launch them on Starship, but at this point they're launching them on Falcon, which means they need to launch more Falcons to launch these larger Starlink satellites. Where did this number of 180 come from, right? That's just sort of out of nowhere, right? Well, I don't know exactly where it came from internally, but I can say that on December 17th, Gwynne Shotwell at a Center for Strategic and International Studies event stated,
"We're hope to fly 136 times this year, maybe 175 or 80 next year, and we're going to ramp up Starship as well."
And on that same day, on the platform X, Twitter, Elon Musk said probably greater than 180 Falcon launches in 2025. So both of them are sort of agreeing here. One is saying 175 to 180, one is saying more than 180. You know, Elon Musk is aspirational, right? He gives those aspirational goals. Has he ever given a goal that was not aspirational? Has he ever given a goal that was actually met exactly on time? He gives the aspirational date, the goal, right? What they're working towards. And that is why I think 180 is the upper limit that I think is realistic. Because even though he's saying more than 180 in 2025, he is trying to spur his workforce to get to that goal. He's trying to motivate them. And it works, right? That is what makes SpaceX one of the reasons that makes SpaceX so successful, is that they put forth these visions of what can be achieved if they work hard enough and long enough and succeed. Greater than 180 is what Elon Musk thinks that the SpaceX workforce can achieve in the coming year. Now, putting aside SpaceX for a moment, there's other indicators that the launches will increase out of Vandenberg and the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, Kennedy Space Center, collectively known as Cape Canaveral. There are reasons to believe outside of SpaceX that those organizations are preparing for more and more and more launches every single year. Just a few weeks ago, the US Air Force stated that they are going to do an environmental impact statement study on increasing the number of launches at Vandenberg in California. And I'll put the links below to these articles. And they are hoping to get up to 100 launches per year. And that's SpaceX launches in particular. So they want to ramp up cadence not only at the one pad that SpaceX is already using at Vandenberg, but actually a second pad as well. So they're looking to study the noise impacts specifically on up to 100 launches annually between Slick 6 and the existing launch pad at Slick 4. And for reference, there were 47 launches out of Vandenberg in 2024. So Vandenberg is already anticipating more than doubling that launch cadence just out of Vandenberg, just out of California. Now, on the Florida side of things, they have also been ramping up for years. They have known for years that they need to continuously ramp up operations, not just for SpaceX, but for other players that are coming on board as well. We've got Blue Origin, we've got ULA, it's been doing launches, but it's going to have Vulcan a little bit more operational, I hope, than last year. And then it also has some smaller players that are hoping to launch this year as well. And so Florida has been working on increasing the infrastructure, and the range has been working on getting those streamlined operations so they can launch more quickly between launches. It's an ongoing process with the state, with the federal government to really increase the capabilities out of Cape Canaveral so that SpaceX can launch more and can start to launch Starships out of there as well. Now, here is a reason why I think that the launches of Falcons will actually decline at some point in the coming years, not in 2025, but at some point Starship will become operational. It's not going to get there in 2025. It's not going to get there in 2026. And it is going to start launching those Starlink satellites. So those larger versions that can fit quite easily and quite a lot of them in one Starship launch, and they will actually phase out Falcon eventually. So at some point, Falcon launches will peak and then come down, but it won't be in 2025. It's still climbing in 2025. What that peak will be, I don't know. Put your guesses in the comments below. I'm going to break down some more of those 2025 space predictions over the coming days, so go ahead and subscribe if you want to hear why I said some of these predictions that I said.